Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is lecture number 14, and today we are going to discuss about the other aspects and the subtopics like introduction about management of resources and physical aspects means schools, building, and hostels, etc. Then the school building means the site of the schools, hostel, the need and utility of the hostels. Then hostel superintendent and his responsibilities, messing and its supervision, methods of living of the students, ailment and regulations, health and games, organizations of hostel building, internal management and registers. So all these topics inshallah we will cover in this lecture, and stay with us. First of all, we introduce like education that deals with all round development of persons, and it is rightly said that a sound mind develops in a sound body. So this is what that if you have a sound body, so it means you have sound mind. So there are some physical resources which play a very important role, and those are considered as the most important objectives, methods, curriculum, and examination. So these resources are observed as the supporting services of educational components which are fulfilled in educational institutions. And so administrators, principals, heads, or supervisors should not ignore the management of these resources, because if you don't know about the supervisions management of resources, then it will be very difficult for the heads, administrators, or other supervisors to do some good management. School plant, hostel, dispensary, library, AV aids, I means audiovisual aids, instructional materials, those are very important, and about these aspects and principles must understand the step involved. So he must facilitate his schools with these facilities. Uh, he must be aware whether adequate facilities are provided in schools to meet the goals and objective of the schools. Because the physical facilities and learning resources, we know that it contribute to the achievement of the school's purposes and objectives. Then some physical aspects are there, like it has been repeated several times that education is concerned not merely with the mind of the people but also with his body, and this fact imposes on the school certain duties which are both negative and positive. On the negative side, if we see, then it must be seen that nothing about the school is against the law of health. So, on the positive side, if we see, then the school must do everything in order to instill into the minds of the children knowledge of the laws of health. So, to begin with, it may be stated that school work must be done under hygienic conditions, and for this purpose school plot is considered most significant, not only as a physical aspect, but it is base interpretation of the school curriculum finds its physical expression in construction and arrangement of the school plots. The size, proportions, and relations of learning spaces influence the type and quality of instruction. In physical aspects, we can also explain that the school site, the school buildings, these are the part of broad concept known as school plot. And overall site of the schools, building of the schools, the lighting, ventilation, school furniture and equipment, curriculum and timetable, these are all the physical aspects of the schools, and these should all be arranged as not to interfere with the health of pupils but to promote it. Hence, the education administrator must demonstrate leadership and management expertise in procuring and protecting educational resources, as well as providing and propelling curriculum and instructional objectives and program. The first one is school building. If we see, the school building is what means in the construction of school building, not only there is need that good material should be used, but expert advice should be sought with regards to the present and future needs of the schools, so that perfectly planned and well constructed building may be the result. The educational effect of good building can't be gainsaid. And a simple, dignified, and artistic building suggestive of the purpose of for which it is intended. So this is very desirable thing from many point of views. Its beauty and associations helps to make the scholars proud of their connections with the school, and it exercises a lasting influence upon the neighborhood. In a certain ways, it is a concrete manifestation of the ideals for which the school stands. It is permanent material expressions of spiritual things. More in detail, we can say that first and foremost, the building must be planned in conformity with hygienic laws. The child's easy susceptibility to injury from the noxious environment demands that this should be the primary consideration. The building should be so situated then the sun can reach all the classrooms without filtering through the foliage and without being obstructed by house tops. The air must be able to play around it freely, and the natural drainage must be effected without saturating the subsoil with moisture. It is well to have the building in a comparatively quiet and pleasant environment so that the work may not be disturbed by unfavorable factors. Similarly, the interior of the building should be planned in such a way to give material aid to the work of organization and assist in every way the production of the best educational results. All this, however, should not be taken as a mean that we should have a rigidly uniform standard in school buildings. Since education is always progressive, changes in methods and procedures continue to demand the construction and alteration of buildings in conformity with those changes. The character of the building too much to some extent to determined by number of children to be accommodated and by the special aims of their training, just as there is no finality in the standards of school buildings. The shape of the building must be such as to be economically and adapted to be utilization of all available space. So it should present a good appearance and provide adequate ventilation all through. Whether an HETLI, so U shape, these are basically the shapes of building that is to be constructed depends upon several factors such as size and shape of the site, the possibility of future additions, and the imagination of architect. The building must generally consist of enough ordinary classrooms, special rooms for special subjects such as history, geography, mathematics, science, and manual work, cookery, etc. So, study hall, library, office room, teacher's room, and laboratory or of course essential. The science laboratory must be located in a place that will cause the minimum amount of inconvenience to the rest of the school, owing the fumes and odors and the staircase, if any, should be in a place which causes the minimum amount of disturbance to the work. Ordinary classrooms should not at all to be the same size. Some should be capable of accommodating from 40 to 50, other from 30 to 40, and still other from 15 to 20 pupils. Approximately half the number of rooms should be provided with blackboard on three sides. For the elementary section, it is better to provide children restrooms, and care must be taken to see that all the rooms for younger children are on the ground floor if the building has also a first floor. Then some physical aspects in rural areas. So in rural areas there are some suggestions which may be adopted, like the school building may be erected in a healthful but inexpensive fashion. Locating school is and rented is not only harmful but also often uneconomical. So in simple words we can say that simple buildings can be put up without great cost. Often the villages can be persuaded to help in the erections and repairs. Buildings of the open air type are also desirable. And school buildings that may be utilized more fully than at present, that this can be done by such means as conducting adult night schools meetings and lectures on matters of public concern. The more such community purposes are served, the better will be for the schools, provided of course the children's interest should not be neglected. So it would be good also if homes for teachers could be provided in the immediate neighborhood. So about 2 or 3 acres of land may be provided for bigger schools so as to facilitate demonstration work, particularly in agricultural areas. Buildings are a tribute not only for the creativeness of the architect who employ variety of materials and construction techniques, but also for many school superintendents and consultants who devoted much time to school planning and design. The significant trend in school planning and construction, those are like planning the schools, building from inside out. The present day concept of school building as the physical expression of the curriculum calls for the preparation of educational specification prior to the creation of working drawings and physical specifications of the building. The team approach to planning no longer is planning the domain solely of the school board and the architect, with the superintendents acting as an informed bystander. So teachers who use the building and lay persons who help pay for it are involved in advisory committees. Moreover, increased size and more specialized design of instructional spaces. Classrooms now are larger, we know, and are especially designed for the function which is to be performed within them. The typical elementary school classrooms of 1920 and 1930s measured 600 to 750 feet today. The size is 900 square feet or more. Then the use of laboratory and activity method of instruction has resulted in larger general purpose and special purpose classrooms as at the junior and senior high schools level as well. Flexibility in design. Buildings are long lasting. Structure and educational programs may change several times during the physical lifetime of building. Planning for change demands special consideration of such things as classroom areas that are square, end walls and partitions that can be moved readily, and building designs which should facilitate expansion of the structure in many different directions. Concerns for shape and form of building, the relative merit of one story and multiple story structure are still debated. The consensus seems to be that in most cases one story building cost from 3 to 5% than a multiple story structure. However, sonic schools, particularly secondary schools, are so large then they are unmanageable on one floor. Also, the amount of lands available and needed for recreational and instructional purposes may dictate whether a 5 GLs or multiple story buildings structure is used, and nevertheless the trend appears clearly in favor of single story structure for both elementary and secondary schools. Use of larger sites, the minimum recommended by the Council of Education Facilities Planners are accepted. So today longer and elementary school is built on a half school built on a half block or a block area, and no longer a secondary school is constructed on a crowded downtown site. The elementary school with 5 to 10 acres and the secondary schools with 30 to 40 are not longer unusual. Then the concept of building as more than the collection of classrooms. and all classrooms are no longer exactly the same mean size, but they vary in areas and design in accordance with the instruction carried on in them. Highly specialized spaces such as auditoriums, gymnasiums, swimming pools, shops, and laboratories are considered as integral part of secondary schools. Then, concern with quality as well as quantity of lighting, the importance of balanced visual environment is now almost universally recognized. However, implementation lags far behind. Contribution for of the councils of education facilities planners cannot be overlooked in this field. Concerns with the thermal environment like temperature, humidity, and airflow, and research determine conditions most conducive to human comfort for learning. This includes adequate heating and ventilation in winter, and air conditioning in summer. Air conditioned schools are now commonplace in all regions of the country, not specifically in the south. Then, use a variety of materials and techniques of constructions like bricks and woods are no longer the basic and only construction materials that are needed. Glass, like in various forms such as glass block, plain, plate glass, tinted glass, is usually extensively, and steel and other metal panels for curtain walls are replacing solid masonry exteriors. So new materials are being coupled with the new techniques of construction. Then, concern for aesthetics. This is very important. Treatment of masses within the structure as well as blending buildings designs and site has enhanced the appearance of much school structure. The beauty of school is a tribute to the artistry of the architect who is able to blend educational demands, structural requirements, and building materials into the aesthetically pleasing structure. And use of carpeting in libraries, classrooms, cafeterias, and administrative suites became common during the 1960s and widely accepted thereafter. Improved designs of components is there, and establishment of school construction system development, and early that was in 1960 by 11. Then education facilities laboratories led to improved design for various components used in school construction. Then, if we talk about the site of the school, this is related in physical aspects. Then we can say that every school medical officers having good experience should be aware that school sites are selected in this country without giving proper importance to the site of sanitary and health conditions. In some cases, these disadvantages are remediable, but in others, they may be permanent and may even render the school unfit for use. Modern methods of building have overcome many of the natural disadvantages of certain sites, particularly with regards to the dampness and other atmospheric conditions. Even so, it should be remembered that it is far better to select a site which has no obvious defect rather to try to remove its effects afterwards. That is, prevention is better than cure. Normally, this is better saying. In choosing a school site in a city or town, care must be taken to see that it should be within the reach of public park or playground games. In all cases, the cost of building and upkeep is as much important matter for consideration just as general convenience and accessibility. Accessibility should include not only nearness and ease of approach from several directions but also availability of transport. The site chosen for school must permit classes being held in playground when necessary. Other important points for careful examination in selecting a site, these are the surroundings, the conditions as to natural drainage and ordinary level of groundwater, the nature of soil and subsoil, the aspect and elevation. Then, functional concept of the school plant emphasizes the effect of plant facilities on educational experiences provided and educational methods and applied rather than on material used in construction. An educational facility may be perceived as a controlled environment that enhances the teaching learning process while it protects the physical well-being of occupants. Caudle suggested that school planning starts with the pupils, ends with the pupil, and that the building should be designed to satisfy the pupil's physical and emotional needs. Physical needs, those are met by ensuring a safe structure, adequate sanitary facilities, a balanced visual environment, a satisfactory acoustical environment, and sufficient shelter space for work and play. Emotional needs, these are very important also, are met by creating pleasant surroundings, a friendly, atmospheric, and an inspiring environment. So, this humanistic, pupil oriented approach to school planning and construction view and equipment as means of enhancing the pupils' learning and comfort. Then hostels. Hostel means that this is the place, like in the school, the spirit of corporate living, unity and safe reliance is inculcated in the students, and they are made to develop their personalities in such a way that they may live happily without harming others. The hostel should not be regarded merely as a living place for the student. The hostel should help realize the ideals of schools and provide an opportunity to the students to develop the spirit of corporate living. The hostel should be arranged in such a way that the students may get an opportunity to put into practice the ideals he is taught in the school. An ideal hostel helps to maintain discipline and teach the students the lesson of cooperation and self-reliance. And this is very necessary for the achievement of aims of hostel, that it should be well organized and managed. The personality of the hostel superintendents always exerts a great influence over the inmates of the hostel and also on its organizations. Teachers in the school is normally put in charge of the school library, but his teaching late is not reduced. Similarly, a teacher is put in charge of hostel without having his teaching work reduced. Under this plan, the ideals of the hostel cannot be achieved because such a superintendent of the hostel does not take sufficient interest in the activities of the hostel. In fact, the hostel superintendent should be a person who can devote all his time to managing the hostel. Then, in physical aspects, we talk about hostels. So, the need and utility of the hostel is what? Like all the students of school do not come from one place or locality but from different places. The students carry with them the influence of their environments. Students who come from long distance make private arrangements for their residence near about the schools. On such students, their guardians have no control. The students of middle and secondary stages need to be under the control of their guardians. In a hostel, proper control may be had over the students, and a suitable environment is created for their physical and mental development. So, we shall discuss more in detail. Like, first of all, as we have already mentioned, the spirit of cooperation is inculcated in the student in a hostel. And in the hostel, there should be a system of self-government, and it should be organized in such a way that the students may learn to be self-reliant. Second thing is that in the hostel, a student lives as a member of one family. He treats others with love and sympathy and develops the virtue necessary for living in a society. He gets an opportunity to become an ideal social being, and he comes to realize that only his individual inclination and convenience not to be always considered. By creating a proper environment in the hostel, the students may be made to feel at home and may be treated with love. Moreover, this helps in disciplining students. So there is no possibility of the student becoming indolent, rude, and undisciplined because the students try to observe the regulations in the hostel. In the hostel, the students do not remain narrow minded. There, they may be provided facilities for games and studies according to their individual taste and inclination. So, this may broaden their outlook. Then, the student realizes his responsibility in each sphere and learn to adjust his expenditure with his parental help. The hostel superintendent should take care that the student does not spend his money unless uselessly, but it does not mean that the student should be made to feel dependent upon others. In fact, the student should feel complete freedom in the hostels, for then only their proper development will be brought about. So, there should be complete democracy in a hostel, and there should be no caste distinctions. The poor and the rich should be treated alike. Then hostel superintendents and his responsibility. So, what are the responsibilities of hostel superintendents? The proper organization and management. All the hostels depends to large extent on a personality of the superintendent, so he should be very efficient in his work. So he should have in him the virtues of an ideal teacher, as well as those are good parents and guardian. Along with this, he should have a good organizing capacity. It will be better if an able and experienced teacher is appointed to this post. But Lai should have less teaching work and should be provided other facilities. The creation of proper atmosphere for the desired development of the students depends solely on the abilities, skills, patience, and sympathetic treatment of the hostel superintendent. The hostel superintendent should treat the students with parental affections and sympathy. Like a father, he should keep an eye on all the activities of the students and consider the propriety and impropriety of each act. So he has to see also the expenditure incurred by the student, so that he may not spend unnecessarily. The hostel superintendent should pay attention to the few points like messing and its supervision. Means the development of one's body depends on meal. Therefore, such meal should be provided as may be conducive to physical development. It is needless to say that this is the duty of hostel superintendent. Physical and mental development is correlated. The student should be provided with such meals which may contain all the vitamins, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. For this, the superintendent should know which food contains these vitamins, carbohydrates, fats, and what degree and in what degree. So, if the superintendent knows all these things, then we can say that the superintendent has not only to see this, but also that the meal are prepared in such a way that the food value of the article is not destroyed. Water is also necessary along with food. Arrangement for pure drinking water should be made in the hostel. Then method of living of the students. Some good servants should also be employed in the hostel to maintain cleanliness. So these servants should be men of good character and treatment and should have the capacity to discharge their duties well. The superintendent should entrust each one of these servants with the responsibility of taking a particular job at a fixed time. The superintendent has to pay special attention toward the cleanliness of the hostel, because uncleanliness is the main cause of all disease. Then regular inspection of the entire hostel is very necessary. So this should be regularly cleaned every day. You should see that the students do occasionally hang out their clothes in the sun. The superintendent should also see that students do not keep their rooms in a disorderly manner. He should check to the cleanliness of the kitchen and dining hall, and for all this it will be better that he solicit the cooperation of the students. Then ailments and regulations. So there should be a small dispensary for the school and the hostel, and the hostel should be occasionally disinfected in order to prevent the spread of infectious disease. The students should be inculcated and other precautionary measures should be adopted to keep them safe and sound. Each hostel should have 2 or 3 separate rooms in which the students suffering from infectious disease may be lodged. Medicines. Medicines which may be given to the inmate by way of first aid should be stored in the hostel. The superintendent should, with the help of students and other teachers and principals, frame out certain general rules for good health and other desirable habits, which should be observed by each inmate of the hostel. These rules should be few and only the essential ones, rigidly followed by the students. The hostel must have some rules regarding the method of living of students, and they will come into existence. In a hostel, a system of tradition which will be greatly helpful towards a peaceful, healthy and happy life should be adopted. Besides this, superintendent should also see that there is a proper arrangement for the studies of students and for fresh air and light. The windows in the rooms should be kept open in the night so that fresh air may enter the room. Then health and games. Games should be an essential part of the life, and this is also part of method of living in the hostel. And mental and physical development, these are interdependent, and development of the different aspects of students' personality is interrelated. During games, the various muscles come into operations and the lungs work with greater rapidity. Thus, the flow of blood increased and lungs get more fresh air. All these affects health of the students. Therefore, games are very necessary for health. Games always to operations the various organs of the body, and mental faculties gets a rest and or reinvigorated. In this way, it may be said that the games and physical work help in studies, because through these activities mental fatigue is driven away. Through games, other such virtues are created in the students which are very useful for their future life and to make them ideal citizens. Through games, the spirit of cooperation, singleness of purpose, self-reliance and dutifulness, honesty, these are learnt. Through games, they learn to face reality, because they have to put up with success and defeat. They learn to obey their leader, and in this way games helps in their maintenance of discipline, and the playground should be near the hostel. The hours for games should be fixed, and the necessary equipment should be available in the hostel, and there should be such an arrangement for games that each inmate of the hostel may get an opportunity to play some games every day. Captains or leaders should be appointed for various games. In every hostel, there should be an arrangement for football, volleyball, cricket, hockey, badminton, basketball, kabaddi, and the occasional matches should be held. Beside indoor games like carom, chess, table tennis should also be organized. So in games, the individual taste of the student should be encouraged. Then organization of the hostel. The hostel superintendent should maintain close contact with the students in order that the atmosphere of the hostel may not get vitiated, and all students may live there as in the family. So we may mention in this respect the home system or the building system. According to this, there should be a small houses for 8 to 10 or 12 students. So these homes should be adjacent to one another, and with each group a teacher should also live. All students should live like members of his family to the teacher's family. If teacher is married, the member of his family should also live there. Thus the students and the teachers will be member of one and the same family. The student should contribute toward the family life by helping out with the shopping and other household chores. So this system will have some. And what are those advantages? Like the atmosphere of the hostel will not be vitiated in any way, and the students will have the feeling of living in a home. The students will do their work themselves and learn the lessons of self reliance. The senior and junior students will live together, and thus they will learn to treat one another in a proper and sympathetic manner. The teachers will come close to the students and will be able to solve their problems. Then hostel building is there. Like hostel building should be such that students may live comfortably, and the superintendent may also be there to manage and inspect the hostel. The building should be such that the hostel gates must be shut and students may not go out. For this, it will be better if the hostel has a square building and is single storied. The room or the residence and office of the superintendent should be near the main gate. The hostel should not be on the busy road or far off from the schools. In every room of the hostel, there should be sufficient number of windows so that the light and sun may enter the rooms. In each room, there should be sufficient space for the students and the cupboards for books. The room should be such as to accommodate the students' bedding, table and chair, etc. And yet sufficient space. The flooring should be cemented and there should be good arrangement for water to flow out. So these are very important, that in each class, in each room, at least one bed, one chair and one table must be there, and one cupboard must be there so that the students may keep their things safe and sound. Then internal management. The internal management of the hostel should be done through the students or the committees of the students. So this should include the method of living of the students' cleanliness and daily work. There should be in the hostel a fixed place for such students, and it should be seen that no student changes this place. The student should keep his bed and clothes well arranged. The articles should be purchased and games, etc., arranged with the help of students through their committees, which should consist of duly elected students members. The superintendent should chalk out the suitable timetable for the hostel and affix this on the notice board. Through this timetable, the hours for exercise and meal, etc., should be fixed. So it is necessary for the superintendent to remember that along with the timetable, the rules and regulations of the hostel should also be pasted on the notice board or somewhere else. So these regulations for good management should be as few as possible. Then registers. A few registers are required to keep a record of necessary things. Like these are very important for the hostels. So there are some types of registers, like admission register means in this registers we can write down names, full address, date of admissions and information about the students who have been admitted in the hostels should be maintained in this register. Then attendance registers there, like attendance of the students must be maintained on this register. Then register of cooperative activities means the record of committees of the students and meetings and other activities should be maintained on this register. Then kitchen register, in this record the article purchased, the rates, expenditures should be kept. So this register should also be indicating whether the students have paid for their articles or not. Then caution money register means an account of caution money taken from the students are to be mentioned in this register. Fee register. This is a very you can say important registers, like this shows the record of statement recording the fee charged from the students and their expenditure. Then property register, in this should be mentioned an account of property of the hostel and its utilization. And cash book is there. This should be like the cash book of the school, and it should be filled in the regularly every day, showing the daily income and expenditure. Money deposited in and withdrawn from the bank should also be shown in this. Then library and reading room register. A list of books in hostels should be maintained in this, and statements regarding the issue of books with the name of students, date of issue and return, that is, it should be mentioned on in this register. Then visitor book is there. When students will be there, their parents, their relatives, they may visit into the hostels, so their name must be written in visitor books also. And you know that visitors of you can say other authorities may also visit the hostels, and they always give their comments regarding the hostels. This was all about today's lecture, and still if you didn't subscribe my channel, please subscribe it, and inshallah we will cover all the lecture regarding this main subject. Take care. Allah Hafiz.